Let me know when you're able to see my screen.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Now, I told you, I mean, we need to first get the basic of programming stuff, and I'll be explaining things in the language that you know, C sharp. And once you understand the basic concepts, like these are the basic concepts that I want to explain. Say variables, what are variables, how to declare variables.
You're typing in this chat window.
Yeah, can you see that?
Just message coming once and it's going again.
But you can still scroll this. See this? If you drag this, you will be able to see the chat. Expand the chat.
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are the things which I will be trying to explain. I mean, when I say basics of programming. Now this is common to all programming languages. You asked me last time like, how I know all this programming. So if you learn one programming language, you understand the concepts. Say preferably say Java or C sharp. You can do almost any other high level programming language.
Okay.
Okay. C++ is a little different, but just a little about the pointers and that stuff. Otherwise, it's all the same. In fact, language like Python and R, it is even more easier because Java and C sharp put in a lot of restrictions. You can't do this, you can't do that kind of restrictions. Whereas Python gives you even more leverage, and R also gives you even more leverage. And R is very suitable for statistical programming because it has got built-in methods for handling statistical data. Makes sense?
But C and C sharp, we are listening from the first year of our BTech. So when we are listening, we thought that something is heard earlier. But Python is hearing first, and so it makes some sense.
Correct. But the basic programming concepts are the same. So today we will just look at these things, which are variables. What are variables? How to declare variables? The basic operators. Not all of them will be.
Can you write everything? If you're writing something, can you take a notepad and can you write those in a notepad? So it is.
Oh, okay, no problem. I can write it. See. Should I write here? This is where what I'll be sharing with you.
Okay. Now, if you write in a notepad, then it is also better. We can alt tab and we can switch it.
No, I'll write it here itself so that everything is in one place. So these are the things that I will be looking at. Variables. What are variables? How to declare variables? What are operators? Types of operators. Okay. Conditionals. When I say conditionals, I mean if statements or switch statements. They are also called decision making statements. Data type, we have already seen data types. looping, or it's also called iteration. For loop, while loop, do while loop, and then there are nested loop. Looking at functions. These are the things that we'll be discussing today. Try to keep things simple. Let me paste this here. Okay. So these are the things that we'll be discussing today. Alright. Now you've seen data types already. What are the major data types? See, in even though you've not seen in Python, because it is not strongly typed, whereas in languages like C# it is strongly typed. See this? You see int, character, float, double, or say byte, boolean. These are all data types. And what this means is that when you declare a variable with a particular data type, a compiler, C# compiler will will hold on to a particular area in memory. No, not a particular area, some area in memory with a standard size. Now each data type has got a set standard size. A byte will hold exactly 1 byte of memory, which is 8 bits. Int will hold around 16 bits of memory. A double will hold around 32 bits of memory. Okay, so it's all about the how much width you need and what sort of data goes in. Integer data type will hold only non-decimal values, whereas double and float will hold decimal values. Float will hold decimal values. Double is will have the double the size of float. So these are all C# things. We don't have to go deeper into that because we are not dealing with C#. We are going to learn R. We are just trying to look at what are these things and trying to make a get a high level understanding of basic programming concepts, which is pretty useful. Okay. Hello.
Yeah.
So, and in last class too, we have seen some variable declarations. Let me try to open that. Rajesh. Okay. Did you see that? I mean, like last class we had seen the variable declaration where it's in integer x. See that? The n gave a, this is wrong because integer x, then it will hold only integer values, and you can't assign text values there. So this is in C#. This, if you try to write this code, the compiler will throw up an error to complain. Okay, but whereas in Python it is pretty fine. But in R also there are some constraints. I mean, just keep in mind, I mean, like, what are the data types? This is how you declare a variable. This is how you initialize a variable. See, I say int x and terminate with semicolon first and then assign values there. Pretty much simple stuff. Okay?
Okay.
All right. We can also do these declaration and initialization in one single process. See, declaring something here, int x, and I'm also initializing that value there. One single step. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So that is about variable, data types. Simple stuff. This is the simple most thing that you should keep in mind, and you will see more of them in R for instance, R has a different way of assigning, initializing values.
Okay.
See that this is R's way of assigning values. See, instead of equal to, you use a you know, inverted arrow, left arrow. See that?
Okay.
And see, and I'm just saying age. I'm not mentioning what data type it is. Am I? Whereas in C sharp, you had to mention what data type it is. First say, okay, it is of integer data type. Whereas for R, you do not specify what data type it is. Okay. Here you are declaring a simple integer in C sharp. Whereas this in R is called a vector. I will get to what vector is. We'll do that next week. Mostly, if you have time, we'll do that today, or else we'll take it next week. Just understand the difference here. Okay. All right. Now let's look at what else. See, if you see this, I am declaring 3 integer variables in one statement. Can you read that? This one? This particular thing? Are you able to read that?
Yeah, you're declaring it. Yeah, I can.
It says int I, comma j, comma k.
Int I. Okay.
J, comma k.
CH and C,
No, don't go there. I mean, I'm just talking about, all I'm talking about is this line. Can you see that? Int I, comma j, comma k.
Yeah.
What that means is we are declaring 3 different integer variables. We are declaring the variables, but we have not yet initialized them, assigned them any value.
Okay.
Okay. And we are declaring now 2 character type variables. See, when you say int I, right, and then you can say I equal to 10. This is fine. Okay, this is how you comment something. Double forward slash, which means that this much code will not be executed by the compiler. If you comment this like this, that line I equal to 10 will not be executed by the compiler. Make sense?
Yeah.
Now, I cannot hold values like Rajesh. It cannot, because this is of text data type, and this will hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 into 16 bits. You need 16 bits to hold that. Whereas this has only, you need 6 into 16 bits. Whereas I is only 16 bits. Understand that? So here you would need around, how much is that? 72, right? 72 bits in memory to hold that. So if you try to put some 72 bits into 16 bits, there will be memory overrun, and compiler complain that it will be done. So, but when you say char C, you can give single characters to that R, but not more. This will work. This will not work. Make sense? Okay.
Okay.
Now look at that float F. I'll say float salary. Here we can say salary equal to okay. See the decimal there. Even if you don't give the decimal, it will be taken as 0, 0. There will be space to allocated in memory to hold some decimal places, even if you don't specify decimal places. Now you know that, I mean, like decimal point, floating point arithmetic, these decimal calculations are not accurate on a computer. Or the decimal calculations will always depend upon what sort of computer that you're working on. Most our machines do the floating point arithmetic is a approximation, so there will be some error all the time, a little bit of error. It's hard to believe, but that's the way it is. If you calculate the value of pi, there will be certain difference, but not as much that as you might notice. But just keep that in mind. Okay, that's how things are. See, I've written salary equal to one value, then I've overwritten the other value. So only the second value will hold.
Okay.
This value gets overwritten in the next line. Variable salary. And similarly, there are other data types. See that double pi, 3.1459. That's double. That will have double the precision. Double the precision of float. Just keep that in mind. Those are things which should be good if you keep them in mind. Okay. Now this is how a typical C# program look like. You can ignore this namespace and this class thing and the static void meaning. You just look at the inner body there. Okay. Because you're not going to learn C# now, but just look at the inner body. See, you declare some variables and then you initialize some variables and do some calculations there and a write to the console. Console, which means that you will be able to see that in the command prompt. And see how it is written, console.writeLine, which will add as a new line every time that it writes to a console. And see that wavy bracket 0, wavy bracket 1, wavy bracket 2. Those are placeholders for the values, variables that you give here after the strings. Console.writeLine A equal to this one. A equal to this one. P equal to this one, and C equal to this one. Make sense? A little bit. It is okay if you don't understand all of it, but just by practice, by familiarity, things will become much more, as I said, familiar and easier for you. You don't have to start all the way from programming, you just understand little by little, then you start doing some small programs as we progress in R, and by the end of the course, it should be okay to do R. Okay? Hello, Rajesh? Hello, Rajesh?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Right. Now, you will in a program you will be comparing values. You will be doing some addition, subtractions, multiplication, division, remainder operation, also called modulus operation, comparing two values whether they are equal, whether they are not equal,
Okay.
greater than.
Here in the
Hello. Yeah. Tell me.
in the C# programming, this console.writeLine is something like we are declaring and readline is executing, right?
See, it is like see this. Uh, I am running this code in R.
Hmm.
And see, when I say that, when I say age, it gets printed there. This is the console. See this console here.
Okay.
So this thing gets printed to the console. When you say something like console.writeLine, it gets printed
Hmm.
to the console. Just like you have
Okay. And
print in Python.
okay. And in the console.readLine.
Console.readLine will read from the console. It will wait for your input, and when you type something and hit enter, that value is read by the program and stored in a variable.
Okay.
You don't have to go deeper into that right now. You just understand how to do things. Your point right now would be to understand these things. Data types, you already seen data types. What are the variables? How are variables declared? How to initialize the variables? What are the operators? What are the types of operators? These are the things that you should be
Okay.
focusing on. That's all you need. Once you have completed this, we can directly go into R and explain these things.
Okay.
And this is what I said, when you have to add two numbers, both the numbers should be of the same data type. If you're adding integer, both should be integer. If you're adding float, both should be float. If you're adding double, both should be double. If one is float, another one is double, then you'll have to convert it. Convert to the higher one. It's like, how do I say, if you have, you can't have two different data types in the same operation. If you have to add between an integer and a double, then you have to convert integer into double, because integer holds around 16 bits and double holds around 64 bits. So you
Okay.
make integer bigger size and convert that integer into double. So integer like 12 when converted to double becomes 12.0004. Same value but data type changes and the memory space also changes. Those are advanced programming concepts, that we will see in so this is it, like how to add. See that D, what is D? D is 3 here, see this, and F is 5. So you have A equal to D plus 5, so A equal to 3 plus 5 is equal to 8. So A gets the value 8 now, and both are of integer data type, so it is okay. Subtract D equal to D minus F, it should be minus 2. And see this C equal to D divided by F, which is 3 by 5. What is 3 by 5? 0.6, right? But C, this is integer division and there is no point in, no decimals in integer. So 0.6 will be considered as 0. So when you do D by 7, D by F, C will not hold 0.6, instead it will hold 0.
Okay.
These are all like small but tricky things that appear in programming, basic programming, that you will get that only by practice. But all you have to do is just understand that there are these things involved here.
Okay.
And X, I already have a character X declared, but let's just assume that we have not declared the character X, and I'm mentioning that this is int I can make the decision. Integer x equal to d into f. That will be 3 into 5 equal to 15.
Yeah.
And integer x equal to f by oh. That's it. F modulus d, which would be f divided by 3, and you're getting the remainder of that. Okay. So f is 5 divided by 3. F will go 3 will go only one time in 5. Remainder is 2. So which will be 2.
Okay.
These are all basic operations, and these operations are common to all programming languages, and these are common to R as well. Those are called arithmetic operators. Similarly, we have relation operator when you want to compare between two different variables. Can you find out what is happening here in this one? Can you tell me?
Which one?
Sorry. This one, first one under relational operators.
It is like if A double equal to B, it is checking if A is equal to B.
And if
or
A
equal to B,
and then if A equal to B, what happens?
Console.range, it will print as equal.
Correct. And see, we are not putting one equal. One equal means assignment. You are assigning B to the value of B to the variable A. So if you do that here in the if statement, compiler will complain. But when you put double equal to, you are checking for equality.
Equal to whether it will check if A value of A and value of B are equal or not.
Okay, and second one?
Second one is checking the value of A is equal to B or not.
We're checking for inequality.
Yeah.
And if not, do that. And third?
Third is checking for if A greater than B, and fourth is checking if A less than B.
Greater than equal to.
Fifth is checking if greater than or equal to B and less than or equal to B.
Good. These operators are common to all programming languages.
Yeah.
Okay. In certain programming languages, you'll have to use hyphen GT greater than. Okay, which is like say in PowerShell. That's a scripting language in Windows. There you say three equal to 5 and you get false. 5 equal to 5 you get true. 5 greater than 6.
I don't know where you are typing.
It's in a command prompt. Can you see that?
No.
You can't see that?
No, I can't see the command prompt. It is not open yet. Now it is open.
Okay. Alright, let me. When I say 5 equal to 6, it gives false. So this is a PowerShell. How I got it is like from run. I type PowerShell.
Okay.
So instead of double equal to in PowerShell, it is hyphen equal. You can also do that.
Okay. Do I need to install this one or it's directly?
It is already there. You don't have to install. It is a very popular tool.
Windows PowerShell copyright method already installed. Yeah.
I'm not able to make you the presenter.
Okay, no problem. But here, if I return.
Okay. So let me see that. Let me show you. Let me see your screen, and then I'll help you understand that so that you can have
So
a.
you got my screen?
I'm still waiting. PowerShell is a script pretty similar to C#. In fact, both C# and PowerShell run on the same .NET platform, .NET framework.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not 5 equal to. Okay, there you have to say 5 equal to. Do that. Put a space.
5 EQ.
Put a space between 5 and. Oh yeah. After that, space and 6 space out.
Okay.
See that?
Yeah.
Whereas put 5 equal to 5, you'll get true. Not that. See, these are the operators. This is for equal to, this is for not equal to, this is for less than. You need the hyphen. You need the hyphen. Hit the up arrow so that you don't have to type again.
Okay.
And there are less than, greater than. For greater than you use GT, less than you use LT, less than or equal to you use LE, greater than equal to you use GE. That way. At least you got the hang of it.
Okay.
Correct?
Yeah.
Good. And then you have,
your screen?
yes. Can you see that?
No, I can't.
What now?
No. Still I didn't get this. Yeah, no, I got.
Okay. Now you've seen arithmetic operators, you've seen relational operators. I'll quickly run through that one more time. See, I got.
Okay.
See, in PowerShell, when you declare a variable, you have to put $.
Okay.
$D equal to 3, $F equal to 5, $A equal to $B plus $F. Now when I say $A, see, I got value 8. Like that, you have the various comparison operators. 5 less than or equal to 7, yes, true. 6 greater than or equal to 8, false. Okay, then there are logical operators. Logical operators are, see, when I say 5 less than or equal to 7, that is true. I can put that in a bracket and then put double ampersand and then say 5 less than or equal to 10. So here it is. Okay. See that here it is hyphen and, whereas in C# it is double ampersand. See that?
Yeah.
See that thing here? If A greater than 10 and B greater than 10, then both are greater than 10. So that is called logical and.
Yeah.
And the other one is logical or. Only one of them needs to be true. For logical and, both of them needs to be true to return for true. If I have specified, see, 5 less than or equal to 7 and 5 greater than or equal to 10, then I get false, because both the sides of the AND has to be true for the value to be true.
Okay.
Whereas it is OR, even if one of them is true, it returns true. Make sense?
Yeah.
Did it make really sense? I mean, see, because I know this is new for you. Of course, you might have done some C# before, but I know it is pretty new to you. So you just want to make sure that you're understanding things.
I have a knowledge about what is going on control, the write line, read line, and all those things.
Okay, good. At least
But
that much is.
it's like it's making me recollected.
Good. See, at least you start off much better than most people who have no experience at all. It will be good to know. I mean, at some point of time you will be required, you'll have some need to write some shell script or some PowerShell to automate things. I do normally write a lot of scripts in PowerShell to automate stuff. And in fact, I even got an award for, this PowerShell thing. In my office domain, like my colleagues were having some problem. They have a data in Excel file and they have to query Oracle and get some output, and then fill into some other files and do some search and replace. So this has to be done for some long set of records, and it becomes very boring as well as error prone. If some person is going to sit there and query the data, get it, save to file, then what do you call, search and do the search and replace, and then write it to Excel. You understand that? But it's pretty much big time problem. So what I did is I automated the whole thing using PowerShell. So that will save you a lot of time. So it's always good to know some sort of programming or scripting language, either PowerShell or Python. Okay, getting back again. Yeah. Now, like ampersand, we have OR, which is what you see now. See, or like that we have double pipe in C#. What we did with hyphen OR in PowerShell, we have double pipe in C#. And there is not operator. See this, A greater than 10. That it is false. What's the value of A? And when you put a negation operator in front of that, it becomes the opposite.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Good. Okay. When you write a program, you will be checking for conditions, whether your file exists or not, whether a variable is greater than another variable, whether a variable is less than another variable. That is when you use two kind of conditional statements. You either use if or either use switch case. When you write if, you can say, okay, if file is present, do this.
Okay.
Else, do something else.
Okay.
So you got two options there. But you can also chain if statements, like if A greater than B, do this. But if B greater than C, do something else. Else if C greater than D, do something else. And finally, when you can say else, do nothing. So that is what you see here. You have first a simple statement, A greater than B, then you say is greater. Otherwise you got this if else statement. See, this starts from here. Then if A greater than B, then write this if A is greater than B. And this toString is to convert an integer, that is A, to string, so that it can be concatenated with, I told you, right, when you have two different data types, you have to, if you want to use a plus operator, then you have to change that to the common data type. Here A is an integer and this part is a string, is greater than. So you're converting A into string.
Okay.
Which would mean if A has got value 10, it will become 10 in double quotes.
Okay.
And then B also is converted. and it is concatenated. When you add two strings together, it is called concatenation. Writing it down so that you'll have a future reference there. And do you see this little picture here? Little picture here. This is the program flow.
Yeah.
This is kind of like the flow chart that you might have seen in school.
Yeah, it's a flow chart. Just if condition, that is a conditional thing, and if condition is done, it will go further. Otherwise, it directly ends the loop.
Correct. So do you see the direction arrow too?
Yeah.
See, and one more thing. See this. If something is true, then that is done. If it is, then it is not going. It does not go into the second line. See this here. If this is only if the first condition is false, will it go to the second line? Says where is okay. Else if B greater than A. If A greater than B, then it does something. Else if B greater than A, then it goes to console.write line to B string is greater than. And if that is also false, then it goes to the default else statement here, last one. So if condition, else if some other condition, else if some other condition again, and then it becomes difficult to write. When there are so many conditions to be checked, one after the another, as a chained condition, then it is better to use a switch statement. See something like this here. We're checking the grade here. We have a grade, a guy has a character grade B, and we have a switch statement here. We are switching that into the switch statement. We are passing the variable here. See, it's passed here. Now it goes from step to step. If it is A, it checks for A, then say excellent, and then you put the break statement here. If you don't put the break statement, it will go to the next case statement. When you put the break, the program flow will break out of the switch statement, and it will come here.
Okay.
Otherwise, it goes down. See, when you have B or C, see when you have B, but I have not given anything there. So for B and C, just say well done.
Okay.
So when you get B or when you get C, it comes down. When you get B, it comes down to C as well. When you get C, well done. And then you have D, and you break that. And when you have D, it says just say you passed. That's it. If you have F, then say better try again. Now, if then you have a default here. This is to make sure that if the user had entered some invalid character, we need to catch that. Otherwise, the program will have an error. So it says default value. If it is some value other than A, B, C, D, or F, if you have entered X or 1 or 2, then it says invalid grade.
Okay.
Right? So this is the difference. See, if you have to imagine if you have to write the if statement, then there will be a lot of braces and it becomes unwieldy. But this is much more easier to read when you have too many conditions. Okay.
Okay.
I know it will be a little difficult for you to understand, especially this is programming, and it's not just for you. Anybody who has not done programming before will find these things a little difficult to understand. So that's why I'm going a little slow there. I will share this thing, this image with you, and then you can take a look at it again, or keep it as a reference when we look at further chapters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then there might be some other conditions wherein you want to loop through the items which are available. See, I'm going to show you some example here, working example. Suppose I want to find what are the files which are available in the E drive, which I do in PowerShell using get child item in E drive. There is no E drive. Okay, D drive. Yeah. See, it says there are these many items in D drive. Okay. Now if I say, when I said recurse, it will go recursively through all the folders. See that? And it is giving a never ending, or well, like it will end after so long time. Oops. I put a 1 hour limit, to make sure that you don't get bored. I mean, this is a little tough, so I don't want to bore you for more than an hour. That's why hour-long timer that is meant of. Okay, I'll explain this loop as well: while loop, for loop, do while, and nested for loop, and then a little bit of function as well. And then it will wind up for today. We'll keep things short. See this. I can loop through the values. For that, I have to say for each object, and then pull all the values.
I don't know where you are typing.
It's on the command prompt. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see the command prompt, but the thing you are typing.
See this?
Okay, it was stucking up. Yeah, okay. It's getting stucking up for every 2 minutes.
Oh.
Now it's okay.
Okay. Let me make it a little bigger. Okay. See the command I wrote. I mean, that's okay. These are PowerShell commands. But see that when I say get child item D, and it goes and recurs through all the folders in the drive, and then I'm piping it to a for each loop, and then I'm getting the name there. And see that? I'm going to stop it. It gives all the files which are there in the D drive, only the names. So the point is, you can loop through the items in a list, in a collection.
Okay.
That's a primary concept in programming, and that is what you do here. See the flow chart here. Program flow comes like this. It goes to a condition. If the condition is true, then it goes to the condition code again, and does some iteration, then come back. And once it's false, it goes to the program flow, proceeds further. And there are 3 main loops in C#, or in most programming languages. These are while loop, for loop, and do while loop. Now while loop is, say you first set a variable and then check whether this variable, say I set the value of variable a equal to 10, and I'm checking whether a is less than 20. Okay, this is false anyway, so this will execute. Sorry, this is true. A is less than 20, right? I mean 10 is less than 20, so this will execute. It will write value of a, which is 10. Value of a, this is converted to 10, and then you increment the value. See that? A equal to a plus 1.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the loop check again. And it says, okay.
And it will print the values from 10 to 19.
Yeah, we are printing the values from 10 to 19. But after it becomes 19, then when this line executes, it becomes 20. And when this comes to the condition a greater less than 20, then it will not print.
Yeah, it will not print. It
so
will print up till 10 to 19.
Correct. This is while loop. Now we can write that in a little more concise way in for loop. See this? Initialization and incrementing and checking
or decrementing and
incrementing or decrementing, everything is done in one loop.
It is the condition, right? Second is the condition.
Yeah, second is the condition.
Initialization, condition, and increment or decrement.
Correct. Increment or decrement. Because that is done in one single line, and it gets printed. And there is do while. See that there is like a little difference in do while. I mean, you first print it and then check for the condition. So this will make sure that even if the condition is false, it will print for at least one time.
Yeah, at least one time it is there.
Good, good. I'm really glad that you know that, so that we can move on to R rather than waste time on the basic programming skills. But okay, really glad. Okay, good, good. See, this is nested for loop. We can write a for loop within a for loop. Here you have say declared I and j, and you're saying I equal to 2 and I less than 100 and I plus plus. I plus plus is another a short form of I equal to I plus 1.
Yeah, it's the increment of one value.
Correct. Yeah. I plus plus 1 is equal to I you know, it says I equal to I plus 1. Yeah. And then for inside that you're saying j equal to 2 and j less than some calculation I by j and j plus plus. And then you can so it will loop through I and it will loop through j.
Okay.
This is called nested for loop. Now these are basic, very basic things which is common to all programming languages, which is why you are able to pick it out. And whether it is Python or Java or C++ or C# or C or any language, this is the same everywhere. Which is why if you learn one language, you can do it anywhere. Only the syntax would be different. You just need to spend some time to learn the syntax and then you're good to go. Okay. Now one of the core important concepts of programming is functions. Now why you need functions is because there will be times when you have some reusable code and you don't want to write the code all the time. You put them somewhere and then whenever you have that functionality needed, you will call this code so that code reuse happens. You don't have to waste time writing things again and again. See, I have put a very simple stupid result here, example here, which is I'm saying find the max of two numbers and you're passing two integers, num1 and num2, and it will return integer. That is what this thing says. See, it will return integer. See that? These two things means that it will return integer. And you are creating a temporary variable here, result, and I'm checking if num1 is greater than 2, then result equal to num1, else result equal to num2. When you have only single statement within the if, you can the wavy bracket is optional. You don't have to put the wavy bracket. If there is only one single statement. If there is more than one statement, then you have to put the wavy bracket. See, if num1 is greater than num2, then result equal to num1, else result equal to num2, and then you return the result. So this function will return the maximum value of these two values, greater of these two values. So I'm here now declaring two variables, int a equal to 100 and int b equal to 100. And I'm saying console.write line, and to that function I'm passing the function with two values which will return an integer. So it will print the higher value, bigger value, which will be b, which is 200. Make sense? Thank you for sitting through that, and this is the basic stuff which was required, and from here on we can start with R. We can look at R programming. This is
the basic stuff enough for things?
Yeah, this is the pure basic stuff enough. I mean, there are a lot of higher end things like object-oriented programming, inheritance, block, class stuff in C#, but we don't have to bother about that in R. We don't have to bother about that in R. R has got a completely different construction. But these things you should know. Then there are some string handling things.
Like how we are using if statement in Spotlight, the same way we are using this loops in R.
How we are using what?
If statement in the Spotlight.
Yeah, exactly. So if you understand these things, then it will be pretty much easy. Period. You said you have done programming long back and you're not really sure about that thing. That's why I put some time.
I was learned C# and ASP.NET, and I was tried for the job in the year of 2009.
Oh, okay. So now that you have brushed up the core basic, now we can move on to R, and there I'll tell you all the string handling and those things. Now if you want to look up on C# again, brush up C# again, I can send you some links to C#, but if it's not necessary, then skip that and we'll focus on R.
Okay? No, we can continue the C# whatever is required.
No, you have already enough things for going on to R. Our objective is to learn R. We need time to learn R. I mean, like
Okay.
C Sharp is an, I picked C Sharp to help you explain, help you understand these things, because you already know a little bit of C Sharp. So when I say something like, okay, if, or, A or equal to B, or, all these things, it will be easy for you to understand. Now that you have seen these things, it will be helpful. It becomes easy for me to explain things in R now. See, I say, okay, age is a vector. Now when you have a vector, it is unimodal. Unimodal means it should hold all values of the same data type. If you are using integer, only integers should come in. If you are using character, only character. If you are using string, only string. But you can mix integer and string. So it is called unimodal.
Okay.
Mode. See? And hash is how you comment something in R, whereas double slash is how you comment in C Sharp. Okay. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Thank you. I mean, this will be for today, and then from next week onwards, we can move on to the R thing.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Can you send the things which we have discussed now?
Yeah, I will do that.